Hello and welcome to tutorial 150, and in this tutorial we're going to be looking at sharing various levels from ascending chart to some receiving charts. Now we've done stuff like this before. I'm thinking of program 35. There's a few versions of program 35, but what we're using in this case is an Excel spreadsheet and the Excel object in TradeStation. So just to give you an example of what this looks like, we have the sending program applied to the chart with the blue background, and we have the receiving program applied to the charts with the white backgrounds. And if we were to select a line and move it somewhere else on the chart, you'll see after a few seconds that that line will be moved on the receiving chart. And so on. What's also happening here, though, is that when we move a line on the receiving chart, we are updating an Excel spreadsheet with its position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the receiving charts for the moment, and I'll show you the changes that occur in the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so if we go to the Excel spreadsheet, you'll see that the levels for this unique word list, which is the unique word applied to this chart, has listed the levels here. So let's just pick a level and we'll move it. So if you'll see here, 145437, 145437, that's E. So let's just take E and we'll move it down here. So it's now 144285. If we go to the sheet, you'll see that E has now changed. Now the other thing I want to show you, I just mentioned a second ago, the unique word. The program has various inputs. Most of them are to do with color. These are all references to color objects to decide the color of the lines. And incidentally, we're restricted here to 10 lines. You could program more, but the program as is dealing with 10 horizontal levels and lines. But you'll see here that we have the final two inputs, a unique name and a file name. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that you need to make sure when you use this program that you have a file named this name and in this location, otherwise you will get errors. That is our spreadsheet. But what this does is it allows you to have various data sets included in the same spreadsheet. So I'm just going to change this to list 3, and I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to close that. And what you'll see now is that we have 10 lines that are evenly spaced on the chart. And if we go to the spreadsheet, you'll see here that we have a new data set. So essentially what the program's doing is saying, okay, I don't have this unique name that you've given me, so I'm going to create a new data set. And then of course we can adjust the levels as we wish to, and these are saved in Excel. So here is the program, and incidentally in this video I'm just going to be looking at the sender program, and in another video I will talk about the receiver program. So the first thing we do in the program is load the namespaces, and we're using the collections and drawing objects and charting and Office Excel and various ones. They're listed there. The inputs we've already looked at, and not going to look at the constant and the variables. Suffice to say, I already mentioned that we are restricting ourselves to 10 horizontal lines, and let's just skip the methods to start with, and we've got most of the program in a one statement which sets everything up. So this is where we create our vectors, our workbook, and our charting host. And we also have an update event for the charting host, a click event. And you may not be familiar with the syntax for that. If you're not, then the best thing to do, if you go to Toolbox and find charting host and double click on charting host, and then click on it or select it in the tray if it's not already selected. Go to properties and then go to the events icon, go to chart events, chart element click, and then double click on that, and then you'll see in the program that we have some predefined code. And if we were to go to the designer generated code, we would see some more code, notably how we create the charting host and how we specify this event. Now we don't need to do that because I've already included it in the program, so we can delete this and we can delete this little bit of code. The next thing we do is we store our colors into a vector just so they're easier to read when we're going through a loop. We define our workbook and we use the file name, which is the input. We share it because we're going to be sharing it with several charts. We want it to be visible in this program so that we can look at the changes made. We're loading it and we want to save it on close. And then because we're allowed to have various names, unique names in the spreadsheet, the first thing we need to do is go through the spreadsheet and see if the unique name we're using as our input is actually included in the spreadsheet. We do that by going through and saying while, and this is the syntax for getting access to the cells in the spreadsheet, 1 being the column, row counter being a counter that we're incrementing each time we go through the while loop. But we're saying if the element in the first column and the row counter row is not equal to 0, a nothing string, then we continue and we say, is it equal to the unique name? If it is, we set condition 1 to true and we load Excel. And load Excel is a method that we'll be looking at in a moment that loads the contents of that particular row in the Excel spreadsheet into a vector. And then we break. And if it's not in that first row, we continue incrementing the row counter until we find the unique name. If we don't find the unique name, then condition 1 is never set to true. If we do find one, we then execute this little bit of code. And in this one, we're saying, okay, we know that there is a unique name. We already have data, so we're going to go through a loop and we're going to create horizontal lines based on the information coming out of the spreadsheet now in the vector. And we'll look at the method that does that in a second. We create the line, we create a click event for the line, and we can, again, if you're not familiar with that syntax, you can use Toolbox as we just did for charting host. We add the drawing object to the chart, and we also add it to another vector, line refs, and we color it. If, however, there is no data there, then what we do is we have to create, or we will create some data. We store the unique name in cells column 1 row counter, and for all the levels, and we've got 10, so we're going 0 to the number of levels minus 1, we're going to calculate the value of the level. We're going to put that into the spreadsheet at the appropriate row. And notice I've got counter plus 2 because we're starting from 0 counter here, and we need to skip the first column because that's the column for the unique name. And then having stored this new level, then we create a line for it. So that is the one statement. Let's now look at the methods. So we scroll to the top of the program and we'll look at the methods. So the first one is load Excel, and all this does is we clear a vector line vals, and then we just go through the elements in the spreadsheet and we store them in the vector. And this really was just a way to try and make the program a little bit more efficient so that we're not going into the spreadsheet all the time. The next thing is a event handler for the line click. This is when we click the horizontal line, and when that occurs, what we do is we store the line in an object called clicked H line. And then similarly, when we click the charting host, in fact, we'll look at this in a moment, but these clicks are slightly different, and you may be wondering why we've got the both. But with the charting host, if we have a click, and that click is a visual element as opposed to a chart background or a bar or so forth. If that is a chart object visual element, then what we do is we go through all the lines and we compare them with the clicked H line. And in this way, we're able to work out, we know the value of the line, and we're able to find which line it is that has moved so that we can update in the spreadsheet the line that has actually been clicked. So let me just explain that a little bit more. If we go to the chart, and I'm going to put the print log on, and what you'll find is if you click a line, click down on a line, you'll see that that's been recognized, and that is recognized in the H line click event handler for the line. So you can see here we're printing the price of the clicked line. So if we click that line, we get that information again. If we move the line and then we lift the mouse up, that then is causing the chart hosting event to fire, and we're able to store through that the price and which line has been moved, which means that we can then update the spreadsheet correctly. Okay, so that's a brief introduction to this the tutorial sender program, and as I said, I will be doing another video which will look at the receiver programs. These programs will be available for download as always. If you are not part of the Markplex email list, then please join that, and also the YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Anyway, hopefully you have found this useful.